Black Myth Wukong has one of the most loaded boss rosters we've ever seen in gaming, in quantity and in quality. I've decided to rank the major bosses worst to best. Black Myth Wukong has nearly 100 bosses, so deciding which ones make the cut was a little bit of an odd process. I decided to go with 42, and you can see them on screen now from when I was getting my list ready and not organized yet, but nevertheless, let's get started with the worst boss in the game. Captain Lotus Vision is the worst boss in Black Myth Wukong, found in the worst area of Black Myth Wukong, the Pagoda Realm. I hate this place. This is the low point of the game without question, and Captain Lotus Vision makes this dogshit area even worse. He moved around the area firing lasers at you and focusing on good positioning. Seems like what they were going for here, but most of the time you can't even hit him while avoiding the lasers just everywhere. My best advice is to come back here when you're over leveled so you can just face tank the lasers and get him done quickly. It's a terrible boss. Absolute dog shit. With how many bosses that are in Black Myth Wukong, it's pretty remarkable there aren't that many bad ones. But another bad one is going to be the Tiger's Acolyte. He's a cool design that goes to waste on a just god-awful fight. I couldn't tell you if his moveset is fun to go against because the real focus is on not getting knocked off the bridge. For a game with so many invisible walls, this was extremely irritating. Also, bridge fights are always cooler, and this being in the middle of a sandstorm was even sicker looking. The fact they managed to turn that on its head and make it work against us so hard makes me hate him even more. But these are the only D tier bosses for me, so let's get into the C tier. The 100-Eyed Taoist Master, and I'll be straight with you, this is the one and only boss I have an incomplete experience with. This is the one fight that for whatever reason my PC cannot handle playing against. I've heard some horror stories about his hitboxes and your attacks missing him because he's elevated above you on the centipede, but it must have been fixed at some point because that was never a problem for me. The problem was phase 2 with all the light just ruining my frames and I couldn't even really play it. I did do the fight and he is a main story boss so he had to be included, but this is a bit of an odd one for me to even rank. Let's just move on because what I did see, I didn't like. Captain Vive's voice was a huge step up from Captain Lotus Vision, but that's not really saying much obviously. I was so relieved that I was out of the Pagoda Realm that the memory of that overshadowed my initial fight with the Captain. For me, the fight wasn't very memorable, so thank God Game Science added the boss gauntlets and rematch mode. Every game like this should have this kind of thing, and it's also a content creator's dream. Helped me get all of my footage back after I lost it when one of my fucking storages got corrupted. Yeah, I don't have much to say here besides lasers are sick, and that is better than Captain Lotus Vision. Elder Jinji is a stronger version of the Wandering White boss, but is a lot worse. I'll get to that. But this is a pretty simple fight where Jinji has some attacks with his fists, he slams the earth and will send his followers at you to explode. I like all of that. That's good. What's not? What makes this so much worse than the Wandering White is his big attack at around mid-health. Elder Jinji summons more followers and they walk towards him. If they make it to him, they heal him, so you have to stop them on your way. That's fine, not a big deal. I'm not that triggered by a boss healing, but the issue is it goes on way too long. This was a problem throughout Black Myth Wukong where bosses had big attacks that would just ruin the pacing of the fight and leave you standing there far too long. This was the first example of it, and it might just be the worst example on the list. The Flowing Sands family fights are bad for different reasons. This is two fights I lumped in as one because they're one after the other and tied together in a way. The worst defense of the Flowing Sands family fights is how boring they manage to be. The duo fight consists of you fighting one of the princes as his father throws rocks at you. It's funny when he hits his son by accident and leads to some more funny dialogue, but it's just over in a minute. And after this, the father goes to get his other son for help, who fucking eats him. That part was completely nuts and carried this out of the D tier. But then the second prince just rolling around and not doing anything exciting was a letdown after that cutscene. The gold armored rhino is part of chapter 6's open world while you gather parts of Wukong's armor from various bosses. You have to hit the horn to break it and then unload on him for some damage. He runs around far away from you way too much for my liking though. When I replayed him in the gauntlet mode, I didn't even chase after him that much and just waited for him to come towards me, and the fight played mostly the same while not wearing down my patience. It's mediocre. There is not that many C tier bosses left, so I'll try and make these last few quick so we can get to the good stuff. Ling Zui, I hope is how you say it. Apologies for any mispronunciations in this video by the way, and I'm sure I made one here. I love the idea of fighting a giant ass scary wolf as much as the next guy, but his moveset didn't have anything to it. He's so early in the game, I usually wouldn't count that against him, but Black Myth Wukong has some really good and much more challenging bosses just shortly after this, like right after. I like when he jumped on the roof and saw you from above, but actual gameplay he doesn't have anything to offer. Okay, what in the fuck is with this boss's damage? It's so outrageous for where you fight him to the point I thought my game was bugged. It's so weird. Otherwise, it's a bit forgettable moveset wise, and I didn't even remember any of the specific things it does to the point I had to replay him to refresh my memory. And there wasn't much point in doing that either. Looks cool, and the cliffside arena is nice, but it's a boring boss for me. The Red Long is a boss that I would guess I'm lower on than most people are. He seriously looks cool as hell, but I didn't remember any of his attacks until replaying him, much like our last boss. He's not very memorable besides that design, and it's a Zelda-style boss where the weak point is just screaming at you with how obvious it is. Break the electrical dings on his back for huge damage until he goes down, and that's it. Rinse and repeat, boss done. Wrapping up the C tier is Yellowbrow, and I'd appreciate if you listen to my explanation instead of flaming me in the comments. This is an encounter that's more of a gimmick and experience than a boss, and that's not a bad thing usually, but this time, for me, it was. This is not an objective list because objective lists are for people who don't have an original thought in their head and are afraid to stand on their opinions. This is subjective in my experience. And my experience with the game was finding a lot of the Chinese mythology and stuff from Journey to the West very off-putting and strange. I can respect it and what it means to other people, but it didn't do it for me personally besides a few specific instances later on. If that stuff resonated with me even a little, I could have appreciated Yellowbrow a lot more, but this just felt tedious and I wanted it to be over. Even though I absolutely respect and admire Game Science's choice in committing to their adaptation of Journey to the West, I didn't have fun with Yellowbrow. That's all. That'll do it for our bad bosses. Next up, now we're going to start with the B tier, which for Black Myth Wukong is the largest tier of bosses on my rankings. These are all good going forward, so if you found a lot of my negativity off-putting so far, that's about to change. At the bottom of B tier is Kangjin Long. I'll admit that I do value visuals and presentation a ton. A lot of other content creators and people that are passionate about these games value gameplay and mechanics a lot more, but I'm looking at myself fighting a giant dragon on a frozen lake, it becomes easy to look past a lot of the subpar mechanics. Kangjin Long can be extremely frustrating in that regard, I'll fully admit that. Most of this game I use Spellbinder, but here you don't have it unlocked yet. And thank God, because I used Immobilize a lot on this dude. It speeds up the fight a ton and counteracts the time lost that he's flying away so much. And on the subject of flying away, it was pretty awful running away from his lightning without being able to hit him during a special attack here. Most of the gameplay isn't great, but I did find the attacks where he attacks you with his body fun to dodge. Having them come at you in slow-mo to make it clear it was an attack that he was going at you with, it worked really well. It's all the visuals though. It just looks spectacular, and that carries him to the B tier, quite honestly. Fu Ben is a very weird boss, and I thought about not ranking him in this, but it's because it's one of those spectacle bosses like a Rykard or You're on the Giant in From Software terms. I did decide to include him though because watching him get absolutely dumpstered by the Yellow Wind Stage was one of the more memorable parts of this game. We won't be seeing the Yellow Wind Stage until much later, by the way. I love that dude. Very similarly, the Macaw Chief looks and plays like a mini-boss, so I was on the fence about including him, but at the end of the day, he's the antagonist of most of the new West chapter, so he definitely should be included. Besides, he's really fun. Even if there's nothing innovative or groundbreaking here, he has a good moveset to fight, and I'm glad he's in the game. He does his job as a mini-boss well. If his job was to get the most out of being a mini-boss, well, the Violet Spider is our terrifying spider enemy. It's another boss without much going on mechanically. I love seeing the creatures that game developers can come up with, and making a terrifying spider creature thing must be a lot of fun for them. If you saw my first Berserker Kazan video, I hated the spider in that game, Aratra, for managing to somehow be so boring. The Violet Spider is the opposite. He's ugly, disgusting, and so scary, man. But the fight is easy and doesn't do anything but show off. And that's okay. Like our previous entry, and like I said, he's doing his job. When there's nearly 100 bosses, sometimes that's all you need for some of these entries. The Scorpion Lord was brutal for me. I got killed by this guy a lot. I just could not react to his attacks quick enough and had to start memorizing them. But once I got it down, it was better to replay. If it wasn't for that replay value, he would have ranked very low here. One thing that I did like was the start of the fight. Bro just wanted to chill and be left alone, and we ruined that. We're basically assholes for it, but it was worth it for the good challenge from the Scorpion Lord. Black Long is another of the hidden Long bosses, and another solid one. Black Long has 2 electrical balls he attacks with, giving him a pretty unique design. When he clangs them together, look out. But when he slams these against the ground, really look out. This could have been one of the best special attacks by a boss in the game, but again, Wukong has made one of these attacks go far too long. It just feels like it never ends. I always appreciate jumping over attacks instead of only dodging through them, but if the time was cut in half here, maybe even less than that, and it's something he used more frequently, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming here, but this attack could have been used a lot better, and the rest of the moveset is fun to go up against, so he's a good boss. The Mad Tiger would be much lower if I decided to account for the quest and that fuck-ass headless banjo playing freak. God, that music was awful and the quest made no sense, just terrible. The Mad Tiger though is good. He comes at you with slams and claw attacks in addition to throwing rocks and using the ground and the cave he's in to attack you. It's another solid but not spectacular fight. This was a bizarre one. Phase 1 you fight Zubage, our hilarious companion throughout the game. That dude was seriously the man, so when he loses his mind and turns on you here, I was worried he was going to get killed off. In both phases you're fighting in mud that limits your mobility, and I hate that. Have you ever had a similar handicap in a game like this and thought, wow, I love that my mobility was fucking awful in that fight. It really made it better. No, you haven't because it's dumb and unnecessary. Phase 1 you fight him while he's going at you with his rake, and Phase 2 he cycles through a lot of special attacks. He has them in various animal forms. The more I think about it, the more I dislike this fight, if I'm going to be honest. I initially ranked him pretty high here. He probably deserved to be a lot lower. But being one of the few moments I was invested in the story, I just went back and forth and I'm still not sure I got it right, but this is where I decided to place him for the story significance. My favorite of the bosses in Chapter 6's open world is the Emerald Armed Mantis. Honestly, praying mantises are an underrated animal. They're pretty underutilized in fantasy. He's pretty scary and pretty difficult. His combination of speed and power was a bit unfair, but it is the endgame, right? I don't have any outlandish takes for this one. Honestly guys, talking about these mid-tier bosses can be pretty hard. It's fun and therapeutic to roast bad bosses, and I love talking about the great ones. But bosses like the Emerald Armed Mantis that I liked but wouldn't replay if I wasn't making this ranking can be a bit hard. But thankfully we have something new to talk about as we round out the B tier with these duo fights. The duo fights of Black Myth Wukong were good, and I did like them. I can't say I ever prefer a fight against a duo more than a single enemy, but Wukong did a great job here. And there were 3 in Chapter 5, all pretty close together progression-wise, so the ranking for these 3 is a bit arbitrary. Top takes bottom and bottom takes top are the worst of the 3. Because of their dumbass name, and while they are fun to fight and decently interesting, they are a lot less so than the other 2 gangs. Fast as wind, quick as fire is an extremely creative fight where one of the heads shoots fire and the head just doesn't shut up really. The combat isn't as good as the other 2, so that's why they're behind those gangs, but I like the creativity here. The best of the 3 duos for me is Misty Cloud, Cloudy Mist. They're each fun to fight on their own, and they work well together as a gank, and again, they're arguing with each other throughout the whole fight, which is pretty funny. I like how Wukong helps you and takes control of the camera to tell you who to attack in the ganks. It seems to always get it right, too. So all 3 of those fights, despite playing differently, do kind of blur together to me. Let's move on to our last B-tier boss. Our final B-tier boss is the Bishuai Golden Beast. This is one of the best beast-type enemies of Black Myth Wukong. The fight gets more chaotic as his health gets lower and he gets angrier and more fire comes into play. It's a great looking fight with below average difficulty for where you find him, but it works well. I liked it. Now it's time for the A tier where we start getting into the really good stuff. These fights are great but fall just short of the top tier for one reason or another. Let's kick it off with the Black Wind King. The Black Wind King is a solid duel and warm up for the final boss of the chapter we'll be getting to soon. But this is a great early game duel that's difficulty is perfectly balanced for where you fight him. To make things a little more unpredictable, he has the Black Wind gimmick which has him teleport around the arena. Here it was done extremely well, and overall I think this was a great early game boss that also did a great job preparing you for the big bad of the chapter where you see him again in his final form. Non-white is a fantastic fight. I can already see a bunch of people commenting asking why I included the following few bosses in the ranking when I didn't include bosses like Guang Zi or Guang Mao in Chapter 1. My criteria wasn't perfect, but if a boss was memorable enough, even if it wasn't major, I decided to include it. And despite being a mini boss, non-white has a great moveset, I can't help but place A tier here. He's a nimble and agile fighter and has some poison and ice attacks. I love that he's that assassin class of a boss. The rogue archetype was underutilized in Black Myth Wukong. This fast-paced fight wasn't overly difficult, but it was fun and I liked his crazy and neurotic energy. I'm a bit disgusted at the use of whiteface here though, that's not cool. Be better, game science. I'm just kidding, who cares? I spent years of my life beating up disabled people, so non-able mollywopping me for an hour and a half was karmic justice. I suck at this game, but that caught me completely off guard. It's hard for me to read his attacks when his hands are bound, and the fact that he has a phase 2 is pretty wild for a mini-boss. Keeper of Flaming Mountains is next. Spellcaster fights are always so hard to pull off in a Souls-like game, but we get a very good one in Wukong and Keeper of Flaming Mountains. It's a very strange encounter, but unlike my criticisms of previous entries like Yellowbrow, the weirdness here worked for me. Phase 1, you fight the Keeper of Flaming Mountains while he attacks you with his magic, and throughout the fight, he'll summon allies to help him out until Phase 2, where you fight the Yin Yang fish. I prefer Phase 1 even with the intermissions of fighting the ads when he's unhittable, but the fish wasn't too bad or challenging. The funny thing is about this boss is this: I can't really point to any specific attacks or moments that I like here. So I do think my Yellowbrow comparison was pretty spot on, because this feels more like a series of encounters than a true boss. It's about spectacle. It's more understated but just as weird, and this one worked great for me, whereas Yellowbrow didn't hit the mark. Now it's time for my favorite of the pseudo mini bosses, and that is the Green Cap Martialist. The Green Martialist has character to him. The hula hoop weapons were a really nice idea here. I've had huge complaints about a lot of the special attacks that bosses in Wukong have, but this one I enjoy just because they look so damn cool. I don't know, is that just me? I think even objectively when he throws 2 and you have to avoid that was excellently done. My only complaint is he goes down quickly. I wish he had more health, but hey, he's one of those mini boss types, but he is the best one. The Stone Monkey comes in at 13, part of the final encounter in the game. And spoiler alert, it's gonna be a bit before you see the Great Sage's broken shell. Shocker, right? The Stone Monkey is somewhat of a target dummy in Phase 1. I always DPS him down fast. Phase 2, he brings in some of the elements, and send fire waves underneath you and pull them back towards you. I always like attacks like that where they pull towards you instead of going directly at you. And as if that wasn't cool enough, the Stone Monkey clones himself and has the game's best duo fight at around half health. Stone Monkey is amazing, but I do think he gets overshadowed because of the final boss, which is one of gaming's all-time best, and that's not fair. The Stone Monkey is fantastic. I know for a fact I am probably way higher on the White-Clad Noble than almost anyone, but I don't care. I love this one. I love duels where it feels like you're fighting in equal terms, and here you have a staff in hand and are humanoids. You get what I mean, right? He has some mix-ups to his combos, which is shocking for this early in the game. The challenge is steep for one of the first bosses in the game, but it plays well enough that it doesn't really matter. By the way, if you replay this in the Gauntlet on higher difficulties, the challenge stays. Phase 2, a lot of that goes out the window where he becomes a serpent and moves a lot more erratically. The White-Clad Noble has some odd tells now, but it's a good phase. I can't lie though, I would rather just have Phase 1 go twice as long than this be the second half of the fight. I don't know, it's a great early game challenge, but I can see why some people don't like this. The challenge has to be just insane if you've never played a game like this before. I just picture someone playing Black Myth Wukong because they love Journey to the West just getting their shit pushed in for hours straight after experiencing the White-Clad Noble without any previous experience in games like this. A bear on fire? That's so cool. It's badass and my inner child loves that shit. It makes my dumb brain just go, hell yeah. Black Bear Guai and the next few are what I think of as an A+ tier. They just missed out on the S tier, but I wanted to make that tier feel special going forward with this and my next boss rankings. Nevertheless, Black Bear Guai has great music and is one of the best presented bosses. I wish every final chapter enemy felt like this. The wind attack is back, but unlike how it was used excellently with the Black Wind King earlier, here it just goes on forever. I sound like a broken record, but seriously, game size has got to figure that out in the next game. These special attacks don't need to last this long. But why does he rank so much higher then? Fighting a bear on fire is just as cool practice as it sounds. I was really surprised how easy it was to track everything here and how the game didn't incentivize me to roll in between his legs, get a few hits, rinse and repeat like some From Software giants. You can see it all and it's spectacular. The Tiger Vanguard was my second skill check after the White-Clad Noble. I had all kinds of trouble with how his sword moves here. It's hilarious to look back at that struggle now that I finished the game. Presentation-wise, he's pretty terrifying. Tigers are scary already, and this one has a big-ass katana while he wades around in a pool of blood. It's just sick. Our duel does it justice too. He's tough and dodging his sword attacks are extremely satisfying, and the introduction to the rock solid mechanic was great and communicated well here. This was a fun, back and forth, surprisingly straightforward fight. I wish we had more fights like this that were simple in that regard, but the next boss goes to show that you can win out on pure presentation. Because honestly, that's all the Duskvale boss is. I don't have much of anything to say combat-wise. He's just simple and doesn't take away from the experience. It's just all about the visuals. And I almost feel bad showing it because that's what this fight boils down to. But hey, you clicked the video, man, that's your fault. It's on you. The phase transition and the Blood Moon is beautiful. It's more like a movie than a boss though, because mechanically, like I said, there's just not much going on. But visuals and mechanics collide for a boss that just missed the S tier. Kangjing Sar is an excellent spellcaster boss. It's probably the best mage boss I've fought in a Souls-like outside of the many good ones I found in first Berserker Kazan. It's hard to say what makes it work so well, but it just does. Her lightning attacks will force you to position smartly. I feel like I'm not doing this fight justice in how I'm describing it because fighting mages in these kind of games is never done well, and it can be a bit hard to put my finger on what makes this one work so well mechanically. Visually, it's obviously stunning, and the fight escalating when her hair turns white and the music changes up is so goddamn cool. I'm just not an expert in game design, clearly, but here's some more spellcasters like this and less like we used to get with crystal sages and the like. It is time for the S tier. These are bosses that excel in every area of the things I value in a boss, which are presentation, gameplay, and difficulty. Before we unveil the best of the best, I would like to ask if you've made it this far to please like the video. It helps smaller YouTubers out like me a ton, and subscribing for my future content and Souls likes and action RPGs. Let's get into the final tier. Starting the S tier at number 7, the Yin Tiger, and this one caught me completely off guard. This is your blacksmith. He's the character you visit during the game to upgrade your armor or craft weapons. I had absolutely no idea what I was walking into when I challenged him to a duel, and what followed was one of the best fights in the game. Everything about this fight is built around making you feel how strong he is. His animations and voice acting show you, but it's the way he swings that enormous ass swords with so much ferocity that tells you. Dodging these heavy cleaves of the sword feel better than what I imagine sex probably feels like. They know they cooked because they even give you a slow motion effect after you dodge some of his attacks. I said these S tier bosses nail every aspect of a good boss, presentation being one of those. This is proof you don't need a bombastic music choice or final boss energy to make a truly great boss. The subtle and surprising setup made it work just so well. While I probably mentioned by now the themes of Journey to the West and Chinese mythology and all its goofy ass talking animals got grating after a while, Yin Tiger never did. He was a straight up Giga Chad and a straight up great boss. The Supreme Inspector is one of those bosses where my first reaction was just, what the hell is this thing? The creepy winged creature with a hand for a head and red lightning crackling around him, riding around the arena on a burning wheel at a speed that is absolutely no business being that fast. The design is insane, and game signs knew it. Every attack looks like it was built specifically to look as cool as possible, and it works every single time. It's pure fun and exhilarating. One thing I will say though is there's no standout attacks individually for me, but the Supreme Inspector's total package is S tier in cool factor and fast-paced Wukong combat. I loved it. Coming in at number 5, Red Boy and Yaksha King. Phase 1 is Red Boy, and he attacks you fast. He is a creepy devil child wielding a staff and fire that he'll send at you like a flamethrower. He fits the whole fire theme of this chapter perfectly, and the pace of this fight is pretty overwhelming at first. He can be stunlocked fairly easily though, which helps balance things out. Though there's one attack where he takes to the air and sends things diving at you that I wasn't crazy about. I was not a fan of attacks that take the boss out of reach and remove your ability to hit them. That's a minor gripe though, because I genuinely enjoyed this phase. Take him down, and it's time for the Yaksha King. This guy looks like he belongs on a death metal album cover. I mean that in a good way though. Game Science knew exactly what they had in this design because the OST changes with him. It's guitar driven and much more aggressive, almost like that metal feel I'm talking about. And this fight is just absolutely perfect. Yaksha King is a more melee focused and a more of a proper duel at its core. As crazy as his glaive hand attacks look, they felt pretty intuitive to dodge for me. My one real issue is the spikes that come out of the ground. They look incredible, but I can never consistently react to them in time, and I often couldn't get out of the area fast enough. That's a skill issue on my end, and I know that. But this is my list, and it was significant frustration that I can't ignore. Even with that, Red Boy and the Yaksha King is one of the most challenging and memorable fights in the game. But now it's time for the Yellow Wind Sage, and then he comes in at number 4, and this one holds a special place for me. This was the first truly great boss in Black Myth Wukong for me, and where the game grabbed me by the collar and said, "You're finishing this one." And because of that, he's always going to be one of the standout memories for me. This is an extremely long fight compared to the other Chapter 2 and Chapter 1 bosses you've seen so far. His health bar is ridiculous for the point in the game where you encounter him, and a surprisingly complex moveset this early as well. He has wind blades, staff combos that end with spears erupting out of the sand, and a tornado that slowly follows you around the arena, forcing you to constantly think about your positioning. Even when I was stuck on him and kept dying, I genuinely did not mind coming back. Almost every attempt was fun, and I didn't get mad at myself despite staying there for an hour or so. One of the most shocking things was that beetle guy, Fuban, showing up. I love how the camera pulls back to show the whole thing coming down on top of you. The first time it happened, my jaw just dropped. I had no idea that was coming. The one part that lost me a little was when he dissolves into the sandstorm and sends out wind clones while you can't reach him. It was cool the first time, but slightly frustrating after you've been stuck on him for a while. But even then, it never got me too tilted. Number 4 on the list, and honestly, the boss that made me realize what this game was going to be truly capable of going forward. At number 3, we have the Yellow Long, and if the Yellow Wind stage made me see the potential in this game, Yellow Long made me get good. This is a secret optional boss, and outside of one of our final 2, he is the one I was stuck on the longest. He is a humanoid dragon wielding a lightning glaive, and he just has endless combos, and the difficulty is pretty outrageous. Yet this fight is generally one of the most fun on the entire list. The flow of this fight is hard to describe, but once you have the feeling and rhythm of it down, you can start getting a feeling for when you can attack him when he's in the middle of his combos. Then there's his flying attacks. The multiple rapid lightning dashes back to back were so fast I couldn't get it down. I had to just memorize that part instead of reading and reacting. I kept dying to it over and over when I was just trying to look for a tell, and I just had to memorize the feeling of it. Yellow Long is a wall, and getting over that wall while somehow having the time of your life doing it is what makes him number 3. It's a rare feeling you get in these games. But now we're going to a whole different level. Surprise as we unveil the S+ tier. These are reserved for some of gaming's greatest bosses of all time, and somehow we have 2 of them. Before we get to the final 2, I want to say, Black Myth Wukong is a boss rush game at its core. That's really what it boils down to. And when a game stakes its entire identity on that, it lives or dies by whether its best bosses can justify that decision. I genuinely wasn't sure it was going to stick that landing, and then I fought these final 2, and I couldn't believe the heights they reached. And at number 2, the Great Sage's Broken Shell. And on almost any other boss roster, this is the number 1. This is the one fight in the entire game that made me actually feel something, and it did it without a single line of dialogue. The Destined One is at the end of his journey, meeting what is essentially Wukong himself for one final fight at the sunset on the water. I had chills, and I say that as someone who was never really invested in the journey to the west story throughout the game, as I said. None of that mattered here. The imagery did all the talking. Then the fight starts, and Wukong is just aura-farming you. He eats mid-fight, he freezes you to drink your health cord and throw it back. It was somehow intimidating and hilarious at the same time without ever breaking the tension a final boss should have. It was just perfect. When Phase 2 begins and the cutscene plays with the Destined One on his heels, Broken Shell turning his back to the sunset as the music changes, I got emotional. I knew the game was almost over and I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Gameplay wise, this is a pure duel. Broken Shell has every tool you have, the attacks are intuitive even when they're punishing, and the whole fight just feels and looks amazing. It's one of the hardest fights in the game. It's as satisfying as an ending to the game as you can possibly ask for. Broken Shell topped Ozma from First Berserker Kazan, was formerly my favorite boss ever, and he's still number 2. I thought about this a lot, but gameplay wins out, and at number 1 is Erlang the Sacred Divinity. In terms of pure gameplay and mechanics, Erlang is just unlike anything I've fought in my entire life. What makes him so special is that you can never really memorize what he's going to do. He's always reacting to you and reading what you're doing. He mixes up his offense and combos at will. I'm no expert in game design, so if you're not either, I'll put it this way. Erlang feels less like a boss and more like a human player with a boss health bar. Instead of the glorified turn-based combat you get from a standard From Software boss, where you wait for the enemy to finish, get your 2 hits in, back off, you have to read what he's doing instead of memorizing. And it makes the pacing perfect. The flow of this fight is unlike anything I've experienced in the genre. Every single encounter feels different, and yet it never feels unfair or random. That is an incredibly hard balance to strike, and Game Science struck it perfectly. And then, I do talk a lot about presentation-wise. He nails this too. It's beautifully animated, and the music deserves a special mention. Every time the fight shifts into a new phase, the music shifts with it, and that makes your heart sing in the best possible way. Like the game is telling you that what just happened was nothing compared to what's coming next. It's not something I'm going to throw on Spotify on my own time, but in the context of this fight, it's doing exactly what it needs to, and then some. And lastly, the difficulty, and this is just the hardest fight in the game, and honestly might be the hardest boss I've ever fought in a Souls-like. But out of the seemingly endless attacks he throws at you across their entire fight, there is not a single one that is unfair. Out of the 10 billion times I died trying to take this boss down, there is not one single time I found myself blaming the game's mechanics behind this boss instead of myself. That is genuinely just so rare with a boss this challenging. Broken Shell might be more visually and thematically stunning as a fight, but other games have done better in that regard. Erlang isn't far off in that sense either, but what separates him is the gameplay first and foremost, because that just hasn't been outdone in any game I've ever seen. That's why he's topped Ozma as my new GOAT, and the last time I felt the kind of achievement after beating a boss like this, that was when I was a child getting into video games for the very first time. I'm not an expert in game design, guys, but I'm passionate about the things I like, and I really liked Black Myth Wukong. I'm so excited to see what Game Science has next. So I hope you did get something out of this video. Until next time, love you guys, see you in the next one.